Hi, this is Sheila from Stamping Wishes and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today we're going to be making this card. I saw it on Pinterest and I meant to go back and look for the person's name where I saw this particular design on, and I'll try and do that before I post this so I can list her name and give her credit for the design. I'm assuming it came from her. So anyway, it's a special little pocket fold. You can, in this case, I did not make it a pocket fold because I wanted my pieces here to overlap, and I used dimensionals. But if you wanted these items to be like a little pocket for a gift card, then you would just leave the dimensionals off here, and then you could slide that gift card right into the center, because this piece here, as you'll see when we make this, is actually opened up. And then you would only adhere your pieces down here, which would leave that open and available. Okay? And in the inside, I've got "You Are Such a Blessing." So let's go ahead and get started and talk about the supplies that we're going to be using. We're using Cajun Craze. And on this piece, you're going to need 8.5 by 5.5. You're going to need 2 pieces of Very Vanilla. That's 4 by 5.25. You're going to need 1 piece of DSP, which is 3.5 by 3.5. And I'll have all the supplies and names of products listed in my description. You're going to be using this bundle. It's Rustic pumpkin dies that goes with the Hello Harvest stamp set, and as you can see, they have gorgeous dies. You can make either the pumpkins with the impressions on them, as you see here, like an embossing, as well as cutting them out. The same with the stem. Then you've got these little filigree little stems that can be cut out. And then this is for the sunflower. This is for the Wishing You a Loveliest Day, the pumpkin, and then of course our little sunflower grouping that we've got here. So we'll be using those. And then for our coloring, we're going to be using an array of colors here. We're using both the Cajun Craze, we're using the Daffodil Delight, the Dark Crumb Cake, we're using the Old Olive grouping, we're using the Balmy Blue grouping, and then of course we're using the pumpkin grouping. And then I always keep my lift off or clear for my going out of lines and stuff. So anyway, let's go ahead and get started with how we put this card together. Alright, so let's take the card piece itself first, and we're going to go ahead and pull it over. This would be scored at 4 1/4 if you want to do the 4 1/4 scoring, or if you prefer just using your bone folder like I'm doing, then go ahead and do that and crease it down. Now we're going to bring over our trimmer and our cutter, and what we're going to do here is to do our markings with a little pencil. So let me grab my pencil real quick. Alright, this is your top portion, and this is where you want to measure down 1.5 inches on each side. So what I like to do is I like to bring it in and line it up at my 1.5 inch, like so. Go ahead and let's clear these out of the way because we don't need any of those. And then once I've done that, then I want to make me a little tick mark on each side. This way I know it's exactly on each side. In case this card isn't squared, I am keeping it level to where it needs to be. Okay? Then, now that we've got the 2 tick marks there, we want to go into half, which half of this would be 2 3/4. So we're going to go to 2 3/4. And once we get there, then I want to make sure that nothing moved. And again, I'm going to put my little tick mark. These can all be erased, so don't be afraid to put your little tick marks where that you'll be able to see this, okay? While we have this open, and before we cut the other pieces, let's go ahead. We're not cutting these, but we're scoring. And I like to score because if we're going to bring, and you could bring this pocket either inside if you want to do an inside gift card pocket, or you, like I'm doing it for the outside, okay, just to make it a regular card. So what we want to do, well, I should have done my tick marks, which I usually do on the inside, but that's okay. This will still work just fine. But if you've noticed, I've got a tick mark here and I've got the tick mark there, and it's lined up into the track of my cutter, okay? And I'm using my score, and I'm going from space to space. All right, and then I'm going to go from marking to marking again, making sure that I've got it on there, and I'm going to go again like this. All right, so now we've got those score lines. I'll lift it up, see if you can see them, that come to a peak there. All right, and let's set it aside and we'll bring it back for the other pieces in a minute. But when you come across, see, you can go to the inside like so. You want to keep these, you know, as even as you can, okay? But in our case, we're going to bring it to the front. And if you notice, by doing this, I've gotten an almost exact peak and triangles that meet. I tried measuring this with a ruler and doing it that way, and I kept coming off. And so then it dawned on me, well, use your tool, and that way you're marking these pieces at the same time, and so they're going to be accurate with each other. And then of course your center will come exactly down to the center as long as you line those two markings that you had. Okay, so let's go ahead right now and erase this off. And while we have this over, I'm going to go ahead, because we are going to have a piece of DSP that goes here. So I like to go ahead and using my tear and tape and go ahead and tack that. Okay. And we'll lift that up when we get ready to put down the DSP. I'll lift off that layer. But as you can see, this now forms a little pocket that you could put a gift card on the outside. If you do this the opposite, making this the inside of the card, which you could, you're going to get the same effects. The difference is going to be that with this pocket, this piece in here goes inside. So that's why we're doing it from this outside. But you can do it either way. Your measurements would be a little bit different on your Very Vanilla. Okay, so now let's set this aside. We're going to bring in our Very Vanilla piece, and what we're going to do here is very similar. We have two because you need one for the inside and one for the outside, but we want to again mark these from the top, and we're marking this one because it is, this piece is a 4 by 5 1/4, so our markings are going to be a little bit different. So we're going to line up at 1 3/8. So we go 1, 2, and there's your 3/8. The 3/8 is always on your trimmer. Let me make sure you're being able to see this all right. Let me lift up so I can see that I've got you where it needs to be. I believe it. You can see it. As short as I am, sometimes I can't see above my camera there, but hopefully I've got it. So we're going in at 1 3/8. So again, 1, 2, 3. Because these are 16ths, we count every 2 for the 8ths. So then once I've done that, then I'm going to close it, make sure that I am totally flat and flush against all of my edges so that my measurements will be exactly here. And I'm giving me my 2 marks. Then for the half, which our centerpiece is going to be 2 5/8. So again, 2 5/8 is always the 2 marks after your 2 1/2, or 2 marks before your 2 3/4 in this case, and that makes it 2 5/8. Okay, and we're going to go ahead and give our tick mark there. While we've got this out, let's go ahead and do the same thing. We're going to do 1 3/8, 1, 2, and 3. Make sure it's nicely flush. And our tick marks. We're going to turn it around. At the bottom of it, we're going to do 2 5/8. Remember, that one is the 1, 2 before the 3/4, or 2 after the half. This is the best way to remember that. Or you can count them like I was doing earlier. All right, so now this time, instead of scoring, we're going to cut. So we want to line up both of our little tick marks that we did in the track of our trimmer and come through and trim that off and set that aside. Okay, we're going to do the same thing here. We're going to line up both tick marks. I still have a little bit of a marking there, and I'm going to come across there. And then you'll get a shape that looks like this, okay? And we're going to do that on both sides. Okay, we're going to line up our center and our 1 marking and trim it. Okay, our center and our 1 marking and trim it. All right, let's set our cutter aside for now. And we can take our scrap pieces, save that for another card. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we've got 2 pieces here. Let's go ahead and erase our little marks there. Now one of these has our greeting on it, so I'm going to go ahead and, as you can see, just to do, I like to do dry fits. You have 1 piece that's going to go in here, okay? And then you have the other piece that's going to slide right into the center and give you a nice little border this way. See how easy that is? Okay. So now we're going to bring our stamparatus in. Let's bring all of this out of the way so we don't get anything else in. I'll go ahead and place my piece for the inside here. And one of our greetings that we're going to use, let's see if we want to, that might be kind of fun. Let's do the, just for, let's see if this would fit in there and still, I think it will. That would be a pretty little greeting, wishing you the loveliest day. And then whatever you want to add to that in your greetings, then you can go ahead and do that. Okay, we're taking our Cajun Craze ink pad and stamping up that stamp. Hold down firmly for 8 seconds, 8 to 10 seconds. That allows the ink to transfer. Gorgeous. Alright, so let's go ahead and close up our ink pad now so that we don't get that all over us. And I will clean that off later. So let's set that aside. I won't need the stamparatus any longer. And let's go ahead and adhere this inside now, okay? Now, you could take, at this point, but I'm pretty confident with where I want this to be and how it's going to leave. But just for the safety's sake, let's leave it like that for a second. Set this to the side. Now, you're going to take your designer paper that's 3.5 by 3.5, and you're going to bring your trimmer in, and you're going to cut that diagonally. Okay, so we're going to go peak to peak, okay? Now, if you've ever noticed that sometimes if you come directly into a peak like that, it scrunches it up the corner of it. If you don't want that to happen, start the cutter off of that peak, go back. My cutter's not in there. There we go. It was not cutting. Okay. Go back and then slice. And this will give you a nice crisp corner without scrunching it up. All right, this one piece we're going to set aside for a second here, and we're going to bring in this piece, and this piece we're going to go exactly into the center. So what you want to do is to make sure that you're balanced. Go ahead and line up your peak, and then line up this line with one of your grid lines measurements there. And because we don't want to start on the peak, click this down and slice down, and then you get these two. All right, I don't think we need this anymore, so let's go ahead and get that aside and we can start assembling the card. All right, so where these are going to go is right into this area here, okay, like so. And then this piece is going to be the piece that you will fit up right into here. Now keep in mind this little, you'll see that little line where they come together at, that seam. Don't worry about that because that's where your decoration is going to be. It's not going to show. Okay, so at this time, let's go ahead and I'm going to adhere my two little peaks. Let's get them lined up first. And every color, autumn color combination that you want to use would be gorgeous with this card. You could make it into a birthday card, a Thanksgiving card. You could just use it for anything that you need this particular design to be. And any color and DSP would look beautiful working with it. Okay, let's go ahead and I prefer using my Tombow liquid glue in this case because it does give me that ability to move around a little bit so that I can center it and line it up on the edges as closely to each other as I can and get a nicer look. All right, so now we're ready to put our inside in. So let's go ahead and put our adhesive on it. All right, so here we go. If you like this video, sorry about that. Sometimes it's hard to talk and do it at the same time. But anyway, if you like this video, I'd appreciate a thumbs up. And if you'll share it for me, I am trying to build my channel. And the larger it gets, then I can continue doing the filming that I do. So I sure would appreciate any likes and comments too. If there's something that I'm doing that you disagree with or would have a better suggestion on, I am more than, you're more than welcome to comment on, or if you'd like to comment that there's something that I'm doing that you do like, or something you'd like to see in the future. Any of those. I appreciate any kind of comment. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and line this up, and I'm turning it sideways from me. It helps me to see what I'm doing a little better. Make sure that my peaks are with each other here. And we need to come over just a tad that way. And a little bit more this way. See, I was talking about the ability to still move with that liquid glue. That's why I do that. All right, so now we're ready to, you can place this in and go ahead and adhere it in because we're not doing any direct stamping on it. So let's go ahead and do that. And then we'll start on how I decorated it and show you another little trick and tidbit I did using our foam sheets. All right, so let's go ahead and fit this in. I'm pleased with where that's at, so I'll go ahead and push it down. All right, so now the base of the card is completed. And again, like I said, if you want to leave this as a pocket, and you could do that the opposite direction and leave your pocket on the inside, but it works better for this design to be able to slide this piece in to the outside. So you still can put a gift card there. All right, so as you can see with the decorations, what I've done, let me bring in, I took a piece, one of our foam pieces, and in it I used our little pieces that come from the dies, these three right here. I lined them up on them, and I went through the machine probably about 2 or 3 times just to make sure that I had a surface. And I'm not going to take them off just yet because we're not ready to assemble them, but you'll just peel these off and punch out your little insides wherever you need to, and it gives you this dimensional, I don't know if you can see it, it's just really pretty, and it's firm all the way through. So that's why I did it that way. Now for the coloring of it, you'll want to stamp. Let me bring those out. Stamp and cut out your pieces. Let's set that aside. You want to stamp and cut out these pieces, and we have 2 of them here. Now what I did, and I'm only going to color part of this for you, and just to give you the idea of how I did my coloring as far as the highlighting on the pumpkin goes. The way I started it, and I'm only going to do one of the panels, that way I can take it from beginning to end, we'll do the center portion of it. So I took my light Daffodil Delight, and I actually colored the entire piece, okay? And I find doing sections for my blending works better if I do it this way instead of going in and trying to do the whole thing in one color. I find my blending. Now I'm coming in with my dark pumpkin pie, and I'm just going over kind of the shading area because my center will be where my highlight is. And you can bring this up like so. Then what I want to do is come back with my light, and I want to blend those kind of darker areas. Now we'll bring other colors in to bring those together, but this is how we begin it, okay? Then I want to bring in my light Cajun Craze, and we're going to just bring in some of those colors to blend in now the yellow highlighting that I did, because I want the highlights to be more in the center, and I want to bring the depth of my color in now. Okay, so I'm going very lightly when I do that. And again, I want to come back with my center and bring those together. I'm going to come back with my light pumpkin. Oops, where did my light pumpkin go? I'm going to come in with some light pumpkin because I don't want to darken my center too much. And I'm just going to start blending my 2 areas, still leaving my yellow highlight in the center, but I'm wanting to start now bringing those colors together. And if you notice, I work off the edge of my nib. I do not go down and color this way. The reason for it is you don't want to break that nib down, okay? So now I'm going to come in with my last of my shading, and that's going to be up here with the darker Cajun Craze. And see, I'm just bringing that depth back in. Again, kind of a flicking motion will help those colors blend better without having a real stark line. Now I want to come back, blend a little bit with my light Cajun Craze, just on the edge of that. Again, bringing some of this down. Now I want to bring my pumpkin. I'm going to come with my light first, just to kind of be able to blend my colors so that they start coming together. And then the last thing I want to do is come back with my yellow highlight to blend all of my coloring that I've done. And if you notice, that gives you a beautiful transition between your colors and helps blend them. Now when I'm completely done with this, then I like to come in here on the center of the yellow highlighting, and I like to use my Stella, and that kind of brightens and shimmers so that when the light picks up the pumpkin, then that will show up. So you would want to come in here and just in the center. I don't do the whole pumpkin, I just kind of do that. And so now when you see this pumpkin, I'll try and bring it up closer. You can kind of see that shimmering going on. All right. Now don't worry about this type of bleeding that you get from the, I use quite a bit of coloring when I do this. Because this is all going to blend in with each of the units as you go. So If you prefer, you can use your watercolor paper. You can use your shimmery white is another good contour to use on this. But I like this, and I like that it does bleed a little bit because it does help me to blend my colors. All right, so now let's set this aside because I went ahead and did one. So it's ready to go. We'll set that aside. Then I want to show you just on one of the sunflowers how I did those, okay? So I started off with my dark Cajun Craze, and I came in here just in where the dark shadowing. That's the one thing about your Stampin' Up! Stamps is their artist has made it so easy for you to be an artist, even if you aren't, because they've gone in and they've made your shading marks where you need to shade. All right, the next thing I want to do is to bring the light daffodil to light. And the reason I bring the light like this, even though those are two contrasting colors and seem like they don't blend at this point together, is to help give me some highlights for the next color that I'm going to bring in. Okay, so now I want to bring in my dark daffodil to light, and I want to bring these two colors together. And this allows me to have a little bit of a highlight on the stem or petal of the flower. Some of them might leave a little bit of highlight, some I may take it all the way to the depth. But this is where you can get that brightness that comes from using your blends. That's what the purpose of them. Now I want to take some dark crumb cake, and I'm just going to go real quickly in the center of it. And that is done. Okay, so to do the rest of it, I used the dark balmy blue, and I'm not going to do the whole thing. I'll just show you where I put my colors. On all my little puff flowers, I'm not sure what they are, but I like the contrast of the sunflower against blue, and so that's why I use those blues. And then I used my light and dark olives, old olive, for my leaves. And that was it. That's all you have to do. Now, if you happen to get too dark in an area and you want to lift a little bit of color, don't forget that you've got that lifter that you can use for that. All right. So let's set aside these and bring in the finished ones. And that way we can quickly assemble the rest of our card. So what we're going to do is bring in some dimensionals and put on the back of our pumpkin. And we'll go ahead and fix our pumpkin first. So let's go ahead and go in here and put some dimensionals in. And because I'm not going to use this as a pocket for a gift card, this is going to allow me to go ahead and use dimensionals to give the depth that I want to show on the card. But if I were, then what I would do is I would, for example here, I wouldn't be putting my pumpkin where my dimensionals laid over on this, like now. See, right now I can get in and out of here and put a gift card if I wanted to in there. All right, these pieces here I want to bring in at an angle like so. And so to do that, I'm going to put dimensionals here, but I'm going to adhere this bottom piece. So let's bring in a couple of the dimensionals that we're going to need there. And then we're going to bring a little bit of the adhesive down here, and that way it just won't catch on things when people are opening and closing it. All right. Let's bring it in this way. Yeah, I like that look. Okay, bring that down. And we're going to do the same thing on this side over here. We're going to bring this where they kind of overlap with each other and come on down. Okay, so let's go ahead and do the same thing. Put a couple of dimensionals on this upper area that where we want the lift to be. And then we'll put a little bit of the liquid on the bottom. And we're just about done with this card. And you can see how quick and easy this card is to make. So we want to slide this in. I like it balanced about there. All right, isn't that gorgeous? All right, so the next thing we want to do is to bring in our little stems here. So I'm going to pop these on out. Out of the backing there. And you want to be a little gentle with this so you don't break off any of your stems. And I'm going to go ahead, you can use take your pick tool. I just happen to have this one, our old piercing tool handy. So I'm going to go ahead and take that out and then take this piece out here. It is sticky, so because unfortunately when you pull them off of the foam, the portion that protects the stickiness has remained on the piece that I cut from, which is fine. Let's go ahead and, well, it's being a little stubborn there. And I don't have to have it out, so if it doesn't come out, I'm not going to fight with it. And I'm going to put the center one coming right down the center of the pumpkin. And there we go. So let me bring these back in. And on my description will be all the details. I'll also have a PDF available with the directions. And so until next time, God bless and happy stamping.